Welcome to this series of videos about language learning activities using paper. Before I begin, I should say that these are the activities that I'm going to talk about are geared pretty specifically towards sort of traditional classes. But if you're an independent learner, or you teach privately, they can be adapted um, for your needs as well. But really, the context I'm going to talk about these in mostly in sort of group settings. So the first activity is a fun novice and intermediate level activity. You can really take it up to the advanced level as well. Draw what I say. So basically, using comprehensible input, you're gonna, sort of tell a story, describe a scene, retell a news event, and people draw what you say. For beginners, obviously very simple things with nouns, with descriptions. Um, it might be, if you're doing a unit on travel, it might be drawing out the things in a hotel or the things in an airport that you're describing to them. If you are more advanced, it might be a matter of, even reading a story or reading a poem or reading something, and people have to listen and draw down things that represent them. You can get really creative with this. It's really quite fun. But reading a recipe, for example, and they doodle out what you say. It's a great listening activity. I like to use it mostly for beginners. Draw the house that I describe, draw the person that I describe, etc. And this is fun too. So for partner activity, again for beginners mostly, it's that same kind of activity. So one student would have to sort of plan out something that they say, and maybe they've got whatever help they need, their vocabulary, their textbook, and they describe something, and they shouldn't be looking at what their partner draws, and they can only use the target language, and the partner's drawing what they say. And then they compare what they were supposed to say, what they meant to say, with what actually came out. And a really practical application of this is partner portraits. So I have a little um, handout that describes, it's sort of a cheat sheet in Spanish, if you will, to be able to describe people. And so the way this would go is, using this handout, a person would think of a person, it could be real or imaginary, and they would write out what that person looked like using these words and chunks and phrases that you're giving them. All right, so both people are doing this. Then one person reads their description to the other, and they draw a portrait of that person, and vice versa. So basically it's draw what I say, but it's really specific to describing people. And then the last step in this is you've got your portraits. Everyone has, you know, we've written our descriptions of people, real or imagined. We've shared these descriptions with our partners. We've drawn a portrait. They've drawn a portrait. Now, the last step is to write a description about that person, the one that we drew. So there's a lot of interaction in language. There's speaking, there's listening, there's writing. A lot of fun as well. An easy low prep paper activity is just an old standby. I think it's worth mentioning Hangman. So it's beautiful because you can count the number of letters and get a lot of practice with saying letters. There's zero prep. You can play it in small groups, in pairs, whole class, and they gotta guess the word. A lot of fun. This lovely person is the late Dr. John Rossius. Oh, what an astounding individual. He taught languages, or I believe language methodology for language teachers, I believe, at his institute at Dartmouth College. An absolutely astounding man. He had all of this wonderful CI interaction with culture, and if you ever saw him, he had the motions and the wave and a lot of movement, and just really, really, really astounding, fun, effective language learning, acquisition, and teaching that this man led. And I was very privileged. I met him once, and saw him demonstrate one of his sort of interactive chorus activities. But one of the very basics that I actually went to a workshop his daughter had given some years ago is basically you would draw out a scene on a piece of paper, and now I want to say that she might have done hers on an overhead, but basically, if you draw it out on a piece of paper and you can sort of scan it in, but I think it works. I'm sure you can do a nice computerized version of it if you've got any graphic design skills. I certainly don't. I get frustrated. I would just draw it out on a piece of paper. But basically, the Rassius method. So it's essentially you draw out a little story. You've got some pictures, some symbols, maybe a couple of words on there, and you keep retelling the story. And I want to say that there's different versions of this. Maybe they call it TPR, TPRS, or is sort of similar to this, but this is really just like a one page um, little story that you're going to tell, and you're going to use the pictures, and you're going to go over and over it, kind of like movie talk, right? You just keep you really belabor it really intentionally, getting your structures in there, and then it becomes a speaking activity, and then it becomes a writing activity. So to really see, you should check out Dr. If you're not familiar with him already, Dr. Rossius. He still has, there's quite a bit on the web about him that he has shared during his years and his tremendous contributions to language teaching and learning. So basically, it's a one page TPR story. It takes about 5 minutes to prepare. Maybe you have like 5 or 10, I say 5 or 10, 5 to 7 points, maybe even 10 on one paper, little doodles, little drawings, and you retell a story. I've done this just to give you some examples, to retell a story about my last weekend, for example, or a vacation, or this works really fun on a strange day that you had, right? And you're just going to kind of keep retelling it. The example that Dr. Rossius' daughter shared is about she talked about the town that in New Hampshire that she lived in. And I remember her very clearly. She did this in French. I remember this very clearly, that um, it was wonderful to watch all these people who didn't speak French really easily pick up these words and become really engaged in the story. So I highly recommend checking out the Rossius method. So next week, we're going to be talking all about grammar with paper. Until next time.